Hello, everyone. I just have a quick little announcement to make. I just started a Patreon for anyone who's interested in supporting my work. As of right now, there are no exclusive stuff in there. It would just be a token of appreciation and support. So, if you're interested in supporting me, click the link in the description. Thank you, and enjoy today's story. I remember that morning like it was etched in stone. The sky was a pale shade of blue as dawn crept over the horizon, casting a gentle glow on my little farmhouse nestled deep in the heart of an old, dense forest. It was one of those cold mornings when the world seems to pause, holding its breath in the quiet before the days begin. My cabin, usually a haven of warmth and comfort, felt different that day. As I lay in bed, a strange feeling, like a wisp of wind through closed windows, sent a shiver down my spine. I sat up, rubbing the sleep from my eyes. Jack, my old dog, was already awake. His ears perked up as he lay on the floor beside my bed. He was a big, scruffy thing, more fur than dog really, but he was my trusty friend, and he'd been with me through thick and thin, and I trusted his instincts. Right then, I could tell he felt it too. Something was off. Pushing the blankets aside, I swung my legs out of bed. The wooden floor was cold under my feet, the creaking of the old planks breaking the silence of the morning. I reached for my worn-out boots and jacket, the fabric familiar and comforting against my fingers. There was an unease in the air, a tension that seemed to hang over the room. I knew I had to go outside to see what was amiss. My farm was my life, a simple place where the days were spent tending to the land and the animals. It was usually filled with the sounds of nature, the clucking of chickens, the rustling of leaves, the distant calls of wildlife. But as I opened the door, stepping into the cool morning air, I was greeted by an eerie silence. It was as if the forest itself was holding its breath. Jack followed close behind, his nails clicking on the porch as we walked towards the chicken coop. The coop was my pride and joy, a sturdy structure I'd built myself. The chickens were more than just animals, they were my feathery pals, each with their own quirky personality. They usually greeted me with excited clucks and flaps, but today silence hung heavy around the coop. My heart sank as I approached. The first thing I noticed was the tear in the wire mesh, a jagged hole that looked like it'd been ripped open by force. A sense of dread washed over me. I had seen what foxes and wolves could do, but this was different. The edges of the mesh were bent and twisted in a way that didn't seem natural. Swallowing hard, I stepped closer, peering inside the coop. The sight that met my eyes was something out of a nightmare. Some of my chicken lay dead on the ground, their bodies half-eaten, their eyes staring blankly into nothing. Feathers were scattered everywhere, painting a scene of chaos and violence. It was a massacre. I felt a lump in my throat. This was no ordinary predator work. This felt personal, like an invasion into my safe haven. Jack whimpered beside me, his tail tucked between his legs. He was scared, and so was I. Standing there amidst the carnage, my mind raced with disturbing thoughts. What could have done this? Why here? Why my farm? I knew I couldn't just stand there. I needed to find out what happened, to protect my home and the rest of my animals. I remembered hearing other farmers talk about night vision cameras they used to catch troublemakers on their lands. With a heavy heart, I decided that was my best bet. I needed answers. Driving into town, I felt a sense of detachment, like I was in a daze or something. The town was small, with a tight-knit community where everyone knew everyone. Picking up the camera from the local hardware store, I exchanged a few words with the owner, but my mind was elsewhere, replaying the morning's horrific discovery over and over. That night, I set up the camera near the coupe, its lens peering into the darkness. I tried to sleep, but it was futile. My nerves were on edge, every sound making me jump. I kept checking the camera feed, the screen a small window into the night outside, but the farm remained quiet, too quiet almost, and that unnerving feeling just wouldn't leave me. As the hours ticked by, I watched the footage, hoping for some clue, some explanation, but there was nothing. No strange shapes, no spooky figures with bad intentions. A part of me felt silly for being so scared, but another, a deeper, instinctual part, knew that something was very, very wrong. With a sigh, I turned off the camera and headed back to my cabin. Maybe I had imagined it all, I thought. Maybe it was just a freak accident, a wild animal passing through. Little did I know that the next few days would plunge me deeper into a mystery far beyond anything I could have ever imagined. The next morning, as the sun peeked over the treetops, I could feel something different in the air. The farm, usually a place where I found peace, now felt like it was holding a secret, something strange and unspoken. Jack, too, seemed uneasy, his usual playful spark replaced by restless energy. I started the day with a heavy heart, making my way to the chicken coop. The sight of the torn mesh from the day before was a grim reminder of the horror that had unfolded. The few chickens that remained were huddled together, their usual chatter replaced by a fearful silence. I had the new night vision camera now, a piece of modern technology amidst my simple farm life. It was my hope, my tool to unravel this mystery. That night, I set it up again, positioning it carefully to capture any movement, any hint of what was terrorizing my farm. Morning came, and with it a knot of anxiety in my stomach. I fetched the camera, my hands trembling slightly as I replayed the footage. And what I saw next made my blood run cold. There, on the screen, was a figure. It looked just like me, but there was something deeply wrong about it. It moved in an eerie, unnatural way, as if it wasn't quite human. Its movement looked reversed, like when you reverse footage of someone moving, jerky, disjointed. I watched in horror as this doppelganger tore open the wire mesh of the coop, just like before. It methodically killed the remaining chickens, its movement cold and calculated. Then, it turned and looked directly into the camera, its gaze unwavering, its eyes empty. It just stared. I fast-forwarded. 5 hours it stood there, not moving an inch. My hands shook. The cup of coffee I'd been holding fell to the floor, shattering. Who or what in the hell was this thing? It looked at me, but it was all wrong. It was like a twisted reflection, a nightmare come to life. I couldn't understand it, couldn't make sense of it. Sleep was impossible that night, my mind a whirlwind of fear, anger, and questions. The next day I felt a determination rise in me, mixed with a deep sense of dread. I decided to take action, to face whatever this was head on. I gathered my hunting rifle and some basic supplies, including a small tent. Jack, my ever-loyal companion, stayed close, though I could tell he was scared too. We ventured into the woods, the dense trees seeming to close in around us. The forest, once a place of tranquility, now felt like a maze of shadows and secrets. Jack's nose was in the air, his ears twitching at every sound. We walked for hours, the only sounds our footsteps and the occasional distant bird calls. Suddenly, Jack's demeanor changed. He growled, a low menacing sound, and then he was off, darting into the darkness. I called after him, my voice lost amongst the trees. Panic set in as I chased after him, my heart pounding in my chest. I searched desperately, calling his name, but he was gone. Just when I thought all was lost, the figure appeared again. This time, it was different, taller, thinner, its hair weird and striped, its eyes a glowing orange. It was unreal and terrifying. The figure spoke, its voice a monotone echo in the still forest. "Jack, come here," it called, but the voice was all wrong. It sounded hollow, like a bad recording, as if it was trying to mimic my frantic calls for Jack. Then Jack appeared. But he wasn't the same. His fur was matted with blood and his eyes the same eerie orange. It was as if he was under some spell controlled by this strange entity. I tried to call him, desperation in my voice. "Jack, come here, my old friend. Come here." But he didn't respond to me. Instead, he lunged at me. His teeth bore into my forearm, a wild look in his eyes. My loyal dog, attacking me. Instinct took over. I struggled, but I managed to reach for my rifle. There was a loud bang, a flash, and then Jack was on the ground. My hands were shaking, not realizing what just happened. I had just shot my best friend, my loyal companion. The figure, whatever it was, vanished as quickly as it appeared, melting into the shadows. I was left alone in the dark with Jack's lifeless body. The pain in my arm where he'd bitten me was sharp, but it was nothing compared to the ache in my heart. Staggering back to the farm, I was a mix of emotion, grief, confusion, fear, anger. What had just happened? What was that thing? Why did it look like me? And what had it done to Jack? The questions swirled in my mind, unanswered and haunting. I stumbled back to the farm, with each step heavier than the last. The searing pain in my arm from Jack's bite was sharp. I couldn't believe what had just happened. Jack, my loyal friend, had attacked me. Now he lay lifeless in the woods. The memory of that tall, strange figure haunted me with each step. The farm, once a source of joy and peace, now felt tainted, as if it had been cursed. The ground felt cold and unwelcoming. I missed Jack's presence beside me, his warm, comforting weight against my leg as we walked. The silence was deafening. In a daze, I made my way to the remaining animals. The horror of what just happened with Jack and the fear of that unknown menacing figure weighed heavily on my mind. I couldn't bear the thought of any more of my animals suffering a similar fate. With a heavy heart, I decided to put an end to them. It was the hardest decision I ever made, but I thought it was the kindest thing I could do under these circumstances. As I took their lives, one by one, The images of the figure and Jack's transformed, aggressive form haunted me. My hands shook and tears blurred my vision. The farm had always been my sanctuary, my escape from the world. Now it felt like a prison, a place of death and sorrow. Every night, that figure stands in my yard, watching me, waiting for me. Perhaps one day, when I can't take it any longer, I'll let him have me.